you doing? Appreciate you stopping by. I've been busy lately trying to get myself reorganized and haven't done any videos in a while, but I'm back going to start doing some again. I'm working right now on my next book. I've been doing time travel, time is series, and then I did my time traveling artist, which was unusual, artistic endeavors. But I think that my mystery stories have become more popular, so I'm going to start doing that. I've got a book out just of my mystery stories called Mystery in My Pocket. And right now I've got two main characters. I've got Harry Prentice, who is a former computer administrator turned OSI agent, and Rocky Stone, who is a reporter for the Sentinel. And I kind of like these two characters. They're totally different. And having a newspaper person as kind of a detective type kind of intrigues me. I like the idea of that. So I'm doing a whole series, or I'm doing the book all about Rocky's little things. It's called Cold Cases. And Rocky's kind of working with Sheriff Morgan, looking through the files of all the cases that haven't been solved. And then he's going to try and get some more information on them, whatever it is, or solve them himself. And the first one is a missing persons file. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to read this, what I've got so far. Now, granted, it's not done yet. I don't have the ending written. I know what it is, but I don't have it written. And what we can do is I'll read this to you a little bit. And then if you could put down some criticisms, be nice, constructive criticism. You can tell me it's garbage if you want. Let me know what you think of it. And then what we can do is I'll do some changes and finish it off. And in the meantime, what I'll do is I'll go back after we get this one going more, and we'll do do readings from A Mystery in My Pocket. And I will read the entire, I know this is going to cost me sales. I'm going to read the entire book. Not all at once. I'll parcel it out, but I'm going to do the whole thing. It's only about 40-something thousand words, so it's not huge. But it'll get you introduced to Rocky and Harry. I got a lot of Harry Prentice stories, but I'm kind of stuck on Harry, so we're going to go with Rocky because I've got this idea of a way to get a whole book out of it. So I'm going to read this to you. Leave information for me on the site. Let me know what you think. Think I should just give it up or what? Let me know. Rocky was leafing through the cold cases and talk too much. I can't read now. Rocky was leafing through the cold case files in Sheriff Morgan's office. He was trying to find a case worthy of doing a write-up on. It might be possible to solve some of these cases if you wrote up on them and got people involved. Most were not very interesting from a newsman's perspective. Missing clothes off people's clotheslines, food being taken off of windowsills where pies and bread had been set to cool. These were usually attributed to tramps, and the case went no further. Also were files on petty pilfering at the dry goods store, usually a comb, maybe a razor tube, burn shave tube. Storekeeper that wasn't keen on making a fuss over such small things, so these two were set aside and nothing done. One file that intrigued him, though, was a missing persons file. Rocky read the file with a growing inclination to take it on. The missing person was a former Marine, about 5'7", 145 pounds. Tattoo on his right arm of an anchor, dark hair, scar on his right cheek. A picture was included that must have been taken in one of the photo booths at the druggist. The information provided was minimal. Last seen going out for some groceries and never returned. No money had been taken out from the bank since then, and his wallet was found on his dresser. He had taken a handful of silver dollars to shop with and had walked to the store, never made it to the store, and the file was handed over to the state police. "Sheriff, mind if I take this file? I'd like to do a write-up on it and see if we can get anything." Sheriff Morgan looked the file over and shrugged. "Well, go ahead, but I remember sending it off to the state police. Never made much of it that I recall. It's been about a year, maybe a bit more, since he disappeared, so I don't know what we'll be able to add to this." He ruffled through the pages and passed it back to Rocky. "Well, go ahead and do a write-up, but let me know if anything comes of it. Oh, you may want to visit his wife first and see how she feels about having this dragged into the open. May raise some sore spots, poor kid." Morgan went back to his paper and Rocky went off to speak to the man's wife. Checking his watch, he saw it was after 10 a.m. and not a bad time for visiting hours. The house had seen better days, but was still solid and seemed clean. Knocking at the door, he shouted in at the screen, "Ma'am!" Excuse me. "Ma'am, I'm Rocky Stone from the Sentinel. I'd like to speak with you, please." "Shut up 1 minute," was heard from the back of the house, and Rocky leaned against the porch railing to wait comfortably. Footsteps tapped lightly forward, and faces began to appear at the screen. 3 boys, 1 girl, and a baby in the arms of a young woman of 25 or so. Rocky heaved himself off the railing and was alarmed as a cracking was heard from the railing. He fell backwards, taking the rail and post with him, landing with feet in the air and the sound of laughing in his ears. The mother was trying to shush the children, but her face was twitching too to hide her own laughter. Rocky picked up the wood pieces and stacked them, promising he'd fix the porch before leaving. The screen was open and Rocky was ushered inside. Thanking her, he waited until she and the brood were seated before occupying a chair himself. "Sorry about the railings. Like I said, I'll fix it before I go." "Well, don't worry about it. It was about to fall apart anyways. I read your piece in the Sentinel, so I know you write the crime column." She shrugged. "Am I supposed to be involved with a crime of some sort?" Rocky held a placatory hand. "No, ma'am. I'm just wanting to talk to you about..." He looked at the children's faces and wasn't sure how to finish the sentence. "A cold case I came across recently." She breathed a sigh of relief and took the children into the kitchen. Seated with PB&J sandwiches and lemonade, she placed the baby in a crib with a bottle and returning sat close to Rocky. "Thanks for putting it the way you did. The children still cling to the thought of their daddy coming home." Rocky felt embarrassed as he started asking questions. "Do you have any idea why your husband might have disappeared?" "No, the fact that he left everything here and just went missing makes you think he might have met a bad end, but why, I haven't a clue." She picked up a picture from the coffee table and looked at it. "I know things were stressing him. Having 4 children, 1 on the way, made him a little overwhelmed." She looked up quickly, "But he was always made sure we had food on the table and the bills were paid. I've been able to eke out what he left to get by, but I know it isn't going to last forever. Hopefully I can get a part-time job soon to make it last longer. Right now I do some typing for a few of the businesses and that helps." She looked over at the desk with piles of paper and an old typewriter covered with a towel. "Did he have any tattoos?" Her head snapped back with an amazed expression that you'd even have to ask. "It was a Marine." "Of course, sorry. Let's see. Anchor, eagle, or motto?" "An anchor." They spoke for a while longer as he asked about his walk, manners of address, and other personal characteristics, till the children finished their lunch and required her attention. As Rocky left, she agreed to let him see what he could find out. At the door, she requested he keep her informed if he found out anything. Grabbing some tools from her shed, he quickly rebuilt the railing, making a mental note to come back and see if anything else needed to be repaired. Back at the Sentinel, he went over his idea with the editor to report on cold cases and see if he could make any headway on solutions. "Well, you're not a detective or a deputy. Bear that in mind when you're working on these. Your authority as a newspaper man won't carry much weight, but considering you're clearing up of the last piece went over big, I guess I can give you a free hand. Just remember to call in the proper authorities if you think things are going to get you in deep. The editor reached out and shook Rocky's hand, and Rocky was free to work on his own again. Seated in the sheriff's office, again, they were tucking into a fried chicken lunch Agnes had brought in a basket. They were discussing his interview. "Well, where do you expect to go from here?" Rocky dropped a clean-picked leg bone in the wastebasket and considered the question. "Well, I've got a good idea of what he looks like, a pretty good idea of the man he was, and a fair idea of what he may have happened to him." Agnes almost choked on a biscuit. "You got all that already?" She was incredulous. Rocky must have been joking. "I'm serious." He emphasized his points with taps on the desk. He was a standout Marine, what they call a recruiting poster type. That means certain traits are going to be ingrained in him since they were probably there already before he joined. He has a tattoo which he was very proud of. If he were more I think I really need to change it. If he were, then he's probably not going to cover it, but incorporated into another. He left all the money in the bank and didn't take the car. I have to feel, despite what he did, that he's still honorable and may be regretting his decision with no idea how to set things straight. Sheriff Morgan rested back more comfortably in his chair and considered what Rocky had said. "Well, if that's so, then he might be somewhere in or on the outskirts of town right now. He's probably disguised. I figure on a full beard and mustache. Pretty full by now, if they are false. Might have to put on weight, too." Morgan did some hard thinking. He looked up to see Rocky and Agnes, intent on him to see what he might suggest. Shook his head no. "Rocky, you started this, and if I spout off now, I might be robbing you of figuring this out. Fact is, I may be setting you on the wrong track by what I've already said. You work it out, and I'll be here either to assist or handle the capture if needed, but frankly, I'd like to see you do this as much on your own as possible." Agnes squeezed both her hands tightly. She was proud of her father, was letting Rocky work things out on his own, and proud that Rocky was handling things intelligently. She cleared up lunch and set off home to take care of her own tasks. Then she would be free to enjoy some time at the lake fishing. Rocky made some notes regarding what the sheriff had said and decided to walk around town. Looking around, he had never realized how many of the men who wore beards. It seemed half the population did, and almost all had dark hair. He sat in front of Woolworths and watched the people walk down Main Street. One thing he decided could not be disguised was a Marine's walk. They usually had a quick, firm pace that was regimented. Now, instead of watching faces, he concentrated on watching feet. Of the many that passed, a few had the gait he was looking for. What else could he use as a guide? From his own experience, he knew that military people were fanatical about a straight gig line. The line from the shirt, buckle, and fly should all be vertical. Would that instinct also still be there? He made notes of the people he had noted by their stride and checked the gig line. A few matched, but by accident or design, he wasn't sure. What else was there he could go by? The sun was beginning to set, and Rocky decided to head over to the YMCA and do a few laps in the pool. He had been spending a lot more time with Agnes, and she was continually feeding him whenever he showed. If he tried and turned down anything she offered, she got such a hurt look that he usually ended up asking for seconds. He was starting to put on weight, and the daily swim and workout usually kept him in form, but it was taking a lot more effort to do so. After 25 laps in the pool, he felt warmed up enough to start on the weights. Bench presses were his usual start, and he loaded up the bar with enough to challenge himself, but not enough to try and bulk out. He liked the firm, lean look with the strength hidden. As he finished, he was plating the weights on. He heard a call for a spotter. He looked over and saw someone had taken over his bench, and the load on the bar was impressive. He positioned himself behind and assisted him to lift and ready. Rocky marveled at the man's power as he did lift after lift without strain. When he needed an assist for the last two, Rocky was ready and then did an assist to return into the rest. The man thanked Rocky, and as he dropped his sleeves over muscular arms, Rocky noticed a lion's head tattoo on the bicep. Rocky finished his workout without incident and proceeded to the locker room. Quick shower, and he headed into the dining room. Dinner was stuffed peppers, mashed potatoes, and greens. When eating at the Y, there isn't much in the way of choice, but what was served was usually pretty good. Rocky ate slowly and watched the tables filled. It seemed quite a few of the older inhabitants of town found the Y a good place to come in the evening. Tables filled quickly, and it seemed most of the diners were regulars and friends. The man who Rocky had spotted was looking around for a place to sit when Rocky let a shrill whistle out. The man acknowledged Rocky and wound his way to the table. Once seated, the two men ate in silence. When the man finished, Rocky felt it might be a good time to begin introductions. He never got beyond opening his mouth. The man nodded at Rocky and went to the table to turn in his tray. Stretching, he made his way towards the room, and as he stretched, Rocky saw the lion tattoo was exposed again. Whoever did the work was an artist, but it seemed that the coloring was just a little off in places. For the next few days, Rocky spent most of his time on the bench outside Woolworth's or walking around. He started noticing the tattoos the men had, chided himself for automatically assuming that the man was in town. He could have fled for parts unknown, but his own feelings matched those of Morgan, and he was sure the guy had stayed local. In the diner for lunch, he brought out a pad and started trying to place himself in the man's position. What would he do in order to fade out of sight? He was a Marine, so living rough wouldn't be a problem. He'd need time to grow the beard and mustache. He'd only taken a modicum of money, so what clothes he needed, he'd have to steal or beg off people. Food, that was harder. He would snare it, fish for it, or find odd jobs around farms to earn money to buy it. He crossed off any reference to stealing. He felt sure that this guy wouldn't steal. He stopped off and made a list of who was missing clothes. A couple of them were men's clothes. He stopped off to speak to the person who had reported them missing. Mrs. Wheeler was apparently still upset about the theft and launched straight into her attack. I don't know what this country is coming to, but I don't like it. Took my husband's logging pants and brand new flannel shirt. Some hobo is coming and out on the trains, most like. Sheriff Morgan trying to keep better eye on it. Hobos, tramps, all the same in my book, though they say hobos are supposed to be the better of the two. Can't see much difference in a man without a place to stay and enough money in his pocket and self-respect he don't have to beg or steal. Rocky made motions as though he was jotting notes on his pad and then beat a quick retreat. He'd heard enough and, feeling in need of some calmer company, headed out to see Agnes. He was surprised to see her coming from the lake with a line of fish. She had a good day, apparently. Grinning from ear to ear, she waved them in the air when she saw Rocky walking towards her. Rushing to her side, he gallantly offered to carry the basket and tackle. The fish she wouldn't release. In the kitchen, she laid the fish out and prepared to fillet them. Rocky rolled up his sleeves to help, only to have his hand smacked when he reached for a fish. You skinned the ones you caught. She smirked as Rocky sat at the table and meekly watched her. Well, tell me about your day fishing, he prompted as he got out his notepad to work on his notes. She continued filleting as she talked. It was grand weather, best we've had in a while. I got out early enough. There were only a couple of other old people out. One might have been darn near professional with waders and boots. He must have been hot in that getup. Funny though, he was just using a stick string and a hook made from a pin, so I lent him one of my poles. He got one big trout and quit. Said he only fishes enough to catch a meal and then stops. After he left, there were a couple on the far side of the lake, so I had my spot all to myself. You just don't know how peaceful it is fishing. She picked up the last one. It was twice as big as the other, and she shook it and glared at it with fierce eyes. Except for you. You put up a heck of a fight, and I got you in the end. She finished cleaning it and mixed up a flour and seasoning into a bowl. Giving them all a thorough coat, she laid the fish on strips of newspaper and then wrapped them in foil. Sticking them in the fridge, she washed her hands thoroughly. Rocky was making notes on his pad and had only half heard her discourse on the wonders of her fishing expedition. She came up behind him and placed her hands under his nose. "Do I still smell like fish?" He inhaled deeply and shook his head. Kissing her hands, he pulled her around for a proper kiss. "Will you be stopping by for dinner tonight, or are you content with the food at the YMCA?" "Well, if I'm by that, I'd love to. Those fish look delicious, and seeing you makes my days better, my best days even better." He kissed her again and then went out to check in at the Y. He had an idea about the guy he'd seen yesterday and wanted to check him out again. Seated at a L bench, he was working with some dumbbells when the man in question grabbed a couple of 100-pound dumbbells and started doing curls. As the bicep bulged, he saw the tattoo prominently again. In bright light reflected off the mirror, the line was in sharp relief. The lips and nose stood out as slightly faded more than the rest. Realizing they formed the shape of an anchor, Rocky decided on his next course of action. He thought a compassionate approach should work best. As the man finished his workout, Rocky followed him into the locker room. Changing quickly, he waited outside in the lounge until his quarry emerged. The man arrived and headed off to his room. Rocky interrupted him, asking for a moment of his time. Rocky introduced himself and got right down to what he wanted. "My name's Rocky Stone and of the Sentinel, and I want to help you." The man raised an eyebrow, but didn't offer to introduce himself. "I don't need any help." He turned to walk away. Rocky lashed out a hand and caught the man's arm. A stern tone entered his voice. "Think of your family, then." A right cross to the face, and Rocky staggered back, landing on the floor. The man made a dash for his room, groaning deeply. Rocky saw pretty well which room he went into as the fire door closed. "Guess I better bring Morgan into it." Okay, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to mark this somehow. And that, like I said, that's just the beginning. And I will read some more of it as I get down to it. I've got about 3 more pages already done, and rapidly bringing this to a close. So let me know what you think so far, and if you think things should be changed, think it's boring or something, let me know. Basically, well, I'm not going to say anymore. I'm going to let you decide what you think. So in the comments section, let me know what your thoughts are, and I'll get this done probably tonight or tomorrow. Read the rest of it, and then we'll start on the Harry Furness and more of the Rocky stories from A Mystery in My Pocket. So thank you again for visiting. I hope you'll be returning and stay with me as I go through my stories. I really appreciate the company, and I really would like some comments, so I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks again. Have a good day, and I look forward to seeing you again probably tomorrow. Take it easy. Bye.